So the first 4 months, they basically told us like really explore our values. There was a lot of practicing. Anyways, long story short, what happened out of this program is that this was the first time in my life that I was given a space to think about my values as a person, as a human, to explore freely and without judgment the things that interest me and I care about. And through that process, and again, I didn't realize how important it was at the time, but through that process, I discovered that I really care about sustainability, but from aspect also of that tension of creativity, sustainability, opportunity for something better, and being at a place where I can be the middle person between people that maybe create waste. They don't want to, but that's just how the system works, and people that can make something out of it. It really hit all the things that I really love about being able to connect people, to connect communities, to create something beautiful, to work with artists and creatives.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talking Purpose. My name is Boothby-Kung, and I am here with Irina McKenzie. She is the founder of FABCYCLE, and she looks so fab. My gosh, guys, look at her over there. I am so pumped to have you here, Irina. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for saying this with the feeling, with my under eyes,
Oh, stop.
not sleeping enough. Yeah, but thank you. I'm
Found
happy
your
to
life.
be here. I'm excited. This is finally happening. I'm here.
Yay! I know this has been a long time in the making. I feel like we started chatting like months and months and months ago, and so we are finally here. And I am just so pumped. I was writing the questions and I was like, oh my gosh, there's just so much to dig into. And so this is going to be really cool. So how about we start at the very beginning, which is a very good place to start. Tell us about your journey to starting your business, FABCYCLE. And before FABCYCLE, what was your relationship with sustainability and fashion?
So my journey was not linear, like with the economy. Haha. And to get to where I am today, but I feel like everybody, have their journeys. So there's just my path. Everybody here have their own path of getting to where they are. I feel it's to discover a lot of things about yourself, about your values, what's important, what's not, where to push, where to pull. And so I feel like all these little decisions kind of led me to where I am today. With like anybody, right? It's all micro decisions. It's not like big leaps. It's just all small things that kind of pile up. So for me, look at my like adult life and just seeing like where the pivot really happened, like the big changes, which I didn't know at the time, right? Because you never know when you're in it. I think I would say probably when I decided to transition from being an employee to being self-employed. That was the first huge leap. And I did not realize how huge of a mental leap that would be. I was working for this company in Vancouver, and I always like worked for other people, like in my adult life. Just it's what you do. You go, you get a paycheck. Blah, blah. I was just like, I really want to like make decisions. I want to like take the risk. I want to do cool shit. I just want to do it. And I was trying to, because I was just like, yeah, eager. So I decided I want to start a business. I didn't know what, but I got very, very lucky. And I feel like stars aligned, and the company I used to work in, my boss, he moved out of the country, and I had an opportunity also, because I was working with him closely, I had an opportunity to transition as well. And he said, my buddy is starting this social entrepreneurship program. Why don't you like join it? And I'm like, what the hell is social entrepreneurship? Mind you, that was back in 2013. And then 14, I started a program. It's called Groundswell Education Society. It's around, but it's very different from what it was originally. And at the time, it was the first year they started the program. It was an 8-month program. They actually told us not to think about a business, like at all. And I was like, this is so weird. I'm supposed to like start a business. This is the program for entrepreneurship. I'm like, what? I don't understand. And so the first 4 months, they basically told us like really explore our values. There was a lot of practicing. Anyways, long story short, what happened out of this program is that this was the first time in my life that I was given a space to think about my values as a person, as as a human, to explore freely and without judgment the things that interest me and I care about. And through that process, and again, I didn't realize how important it was at the time, but through that process, I discovered that I really care about sustainability, but from aspect also of like that tension of creativity, sustainability, opportunity for like something better, and being in a place where I can be the middle person between like people that maybe create waste, or people not they don't want to, but that's just how the system works, and people that can make something out of it. It really hit all the things that I really love about being able to connect people, to connect communities, to create something beautiful, to work with artists and creatives. And through the process, I started another organization, not FABCYCLE. I started a nonprofit called Framework Education Society, and we were doing community repair events around town. So that was the biggest pivotal moment, I would say, in my professional career. Well, second one, but but that was what led me to FABCYCLE, essentially.
Well, that sounds awesome. So when starting out, how did you actually validate this idea? Like, how did you know that people would want to buy, use, or reclaim material? And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of things. So we did a bunch of surveys just to say, hey, is this something you're interested in? And then we also did a pop-up shop for a week just to validate. And we had people like lining up outside to like get the stuff. And then also, because I'm like in the community, and then talk to people. So I continuously like talking to people, understanding like, is this something you like? Is this something you want? Like, how do you want to see it? Like, how do you want us to talk about it? And so it's just like a continuous conversation. Like we continuously validate things, what's working, what's not working. And it's interesting because we're seeing so many of other shops or other folks in this industry like using a lot of like the techniques we've been using. So I feel like that's the most like highest form of flattery. It's like when you see like other folks are like imitating stuff that you do, and like yes, it's also a little annoying, but it's also like it's a compliment, it means it's working, it means it's a good way to communicate like the problem, the issue, like the language. And yeah, and we continuously like talking to like our customers and our community, just seeing like what other stuff can we do to support you, because this textile waste exists because people are not making, whether they're they're businesses or they're even private people, they're not making. So actually, well, these conversations also led us to build an app. We built a sewing app because of that. It's called Sewjo. We launched it like a year ago, but we started working on it 2 years ago because we were thinking, well, you know what? Like the reason people are not making is because oftentimes there's a huge disconnect between the act of like collecting or curating materials and the act of actually making. And sometimes one thing overweights the other. And so we wanted to help close that gap and get people to see the materials they currently have, like not to push them to buy more, but to push them to use what they currently have. So we built Sewjo for that, and it's a free app. You can download it on, Play Store, on iOS, and just use it. And we want to encourage folks, to make more and not to buy more necessarily, because that leads to producing more. And that's why we're here.
I love that. And like, I have some questions saved for the end about the app, but let's dive into it now because this is so interesting. You're in this textile space and now you're basically like a tech founder. So, what was it like building a tech product? What surprised you? What was frustrating? What was super rewarding? Like, I would love to hear how that process went.
So I think it's like, okay, so I think like foundational piece, like personality wise, I'm like I'm a problem solver, and I'm a coordinator at heart. I like to coordinate between like different things and stuff. It wasn't a huge transition for me, like in terms of like learning how to work with new like industry of folks. Mind you, also before Sewjo, I actually built it. I didn't build myself, but I managed another team of developers and UX UI designers when we built a web app that is for FABCYCLE to help to enter products online to our shop easier. Because with FABCYCLE, there's such a huge challenge with logistically challenge in terms of dealing with inconsistent and predictable stock. And so we wanted to create an app that is for our use to be able to standardize the process of input. So, we're able to input between 50 to 300 products per week because of that online. That was my first experience with working with developers and just how they think. And it was such an interesting learning curve because I've never worked with like tech folks, and how they think, how they operate, how they organize themselves is very different from what I'm used to in, being more in the creative world of makers. It's just the tools they use are different. The way they measure their success or impact is different. The language they use about it is different. The way they talk to each other, or like the way even like socially acceptable like ways to communicate is different. And I love that. It was like, oh, cool. This is so interesting. I dig that. So I feel like that fit with my personality. And I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. So we built it. And it was also like less pressure because that first app we built was not meant to go commercially. Like we're not ever meant to like make money out of it. It was for our use, for improvement of our operations. So because it was internal, like it doesn't have to be pretty. It has to be functional. Exactly. It was better to do it that way. So we built it and it's working and it's all great. But we still have developer like, in team that just maintains it, as needed. So that was my first kind of stint. But then building Sewjo, it's an entirely different level. Because now we're talking about, okay, now it's a public app, meaning it does have to be pretty. We do have to do UX UI research. We do have to do a lot of mockups, and we have to talk with the developer. There's so much like handoff that goes into it. There's so much testing. Oh my God, so much testing, and everything breaks all the time because it's just a part of the process. We have to document everything and like the tools, the systems to document it. There's so many. Then there's like, okay, well, how do we like, okay, I mean, developers are not cheap, like UX UI designers are not cheap, but like, how do you do this? So there was just so much, but we made it work. We built it. It's released. It's not like we're not done with development. There's so much more still to work on. But I feel I like grew as a person professionally and personally as well by working with the tech team and working with a team that is, operational, creative, and so on.
I guess my question, building an app seems like, having a SaaS company. Wow, what a way to like go and evolve as a founder. And I'm sure that there's people out there who are running product-based businesses who are thinking to themselves like, oh, maybe I could build an app or do something. Anyone can, but I guess it's like, how did you go about finding what was needed? Like there's so many ways that you could reach your community. And so what made you go down this app road, or what made you say, oh, you know what, this needs to be an app. This isn't like a meetup or a web page or a Slack channel. This needs to be an app.
That's a good question. So I think it relates to like the vision and where Sewjo is going. And I think why I decided to go. So first, I would say Sewjo, like the idea didn't even have a name at a time. I started thinking about it actually over 4 years ago. I just had to put my things on pause because a lot of life circumstances happened. So I really paused things for like over 2 years. But I actually started doing surveys around that first time 4 years ago. Then we did another one like 2 years ago. And then we did a couple more surveys along the line. And the reason we did all those surveys is just there was a couple of things. And just realizing that the sewing industry is very fragmented. And I'm talking about hobby and craft. I'm not talking about industry right now specifically. I'm talking about folks that sew for a hobby, that just enjoy it. It's very fragmented. You have your shops, you have your folks that are like consumers, you have educators, you have events. There's all kinds of like players, and they're all like really fragmented. And it's really difficult to find things. And also, sewing as a hobby, it is a lifelong hobby. Like it's not a quick thing that you just learn and go. I mean, you can, but it's a skill that requires improving and optimizing and learning more. Like you really do this and it's also not a quick one necessarily. Like if you ever look at a pattern and like what requires behind it, there's instructions, you need materials, there's, you need to really assign a lot of time for this. And there's a lot of planning and thinking. And because of that, there's a lot of steps throughout the way. Because of that, there's more chances for things to break along the way with the process. So the person not necessarily will finish making what they wanted to make because of different reasons. And so I was thinking, well, I wish there was a platform that is built for the sewing community. So it supports people with everything they need. And it's not like Facebook groups or Discord groups or Pinterest for inspiration, or your folder from note making, whatever. I wish it was something was built for what us makers need, like customized for our needs. And I was like, okay, yeah, like, why don't we build that? Like, this is what we want to do. We want to support our community to connect to each other more in person, not through the app. Like, that's not my intention. My intention is not for people to stay in the app. My intention is for people to use the app as a tool and connect to each other in person, and also make things offline, not in the app. But so I was like, okay, well, I mean, FabCycle is dealing with moving materials along. So we do need people to buy things, so we're able to move things. But with Sewjo, the intention behind it is like, don't buy more, make more, or connect to people more. And if you can't, and if you don't want to, like, make more, that's okay. Give it to somebody else. So that's why I'm like, yeah, there's no such thing. It doesn't exist. It's all over the place, and there's not really a place for us. So let's do this. Let's build this.
Cool. Oh man, that's awesome. So it sounds like you've done a lot of surveys in your time. And I think that that is something worth calling out. I taught at a college once upon a time, and it was all about market research. And, it's something that people just forget about. It's like you do have to talk to real people. You hear these podcasts or YouTube videos of people, yeah, I just launched this product and now I'm making $1 million a month, and et cetera, et cetera. And you're just like, okay, well, how did you go from step 1 to step 5? And a lot of it is you actually have to talk to human beings, and you have to get over your fear of getting out there and putting your idea into real life and seeing if real people actually want something like this. So it does. It probably, for some people, it takes a lot of courage to do something like that. And obviously that's something that you've had quite a bit along the way, because you've done a lot of things. You've built a lot of things. But changing gears a little bit, you've mentioned community a lot. And that is something, when we originally chatted, was something that I really, really enjoyed learning about what it is you do. You're not just building out this product in this e-commerce store. You've built this community around it. And so what have you learned about people and your business through building this community?
I learned that people really do want to connect to each other. And what I really love about the process of making, it's that it's a medium for people to connect to each other, like on a human level. Like when we start talking about, things we're making, or things we're bought to make something, or things we're, an event we're going to, it's just to allow us for people to find something in common and connect on that level, and then, become friends or enjoy each other's company. And also, like, the process of making is very personal. When you're like make something, it is like, the reason it's a hobby and it's so like therapeutic in a way is because you have to get into your own kind of like mind and figure out ways to like fix something, or get over like a challenge or a problem or something you don't know. You have to like research something, have to learn a skill. All this like micro achievements, as I would say, they really add up to the sense of accomplishment and pride. And I think that's one of the reasons why people make as well, because it's something you've accomplished, you did something, and you can also show for it because it's a physical thing. And then there's also the part of the community where they're just really happy to talk about their projects because of that pride and that accomplishment. And they also recognize it in other people. And I love hearing that. Like when people start showing me like the stuff they made, like it is such a joy every time. It's wonderful. 2 days ago, I went to the studio and I was away on a Friday because we did a market, and a customer left this beautiful note, like a long note, like a letter and envelope, just saying thank you for supporting her, because she was just launching like her own thing, and she came and we gave her a lot of advice on how to do things, and she was so grateful. She dropped off like a handwritten like huge note. It was so sweet. It was just like, this kind of like acts of appreciation. It's very validating. It feels really good, like, to do what we're doing. So that's what I learned. People are awesome. That's what I learned.
I want to share something that I'm building alongside this podcast. It's a community for purpose-driven, product-based founders who don't want to build alone and who want to grow smarter, not just harder. After years of supporting founders at Shopify, I kept seeing the same thing: mission-led entrepreneurs doing meaningful work, but lacking a peer space that helps them move faster and make better decisions without compromising their values. This community is designed to be a growth accelerator, a place to learn what's working, pressure test ideas, share real tactics, and build momentum together so growth feels intentional, supportive, and sustainable. If you're interested, join the waitlist. Find the link in the show notes below. And I love that. And like, how nice for you to be a part of so many people's journeys, whether they're just hobbyists or maybe they picked it up because, I don't know, their grandma did it and they want to like get in touch with their past and their family, or it helped them get through a hard time. And I'm sure that that's really, really special for you to be a part of that. It feels a little crass to ask this next question, but obviously there's that beautiful side of it. But how does community and how is building community translating into also business growth? Because obviously you have a family and you have to make sure that they have food on the table. And so how have these beautiful stories created a beautiful story for you in your journey?
It has allowed us to, be in business. We actually celebrated 7 years this year from opening the studio, but it's actually been 9 years in March since like running the business. So we're around. It's not easy in this economy, and to be really frank, things are really difficult right now. They're extremely challenging because everything is more expensive. Now we're at the point where we're competing with fabric stores, which is tricky because fabric stores have the advantage of choosing the stuff they sell, like all the pretty things people want. We don't. We collect actual textile waste to sell it, and it's not necessarily like the pretty print because they're coming from industry. So they're like the black, navy, beige colors that they're solid. They're great materials. They're high quality, but it's not what necessarily makers want to make. We have a lot of challenges with that for sure. It's like, how do we make sure like it gets to people's, because people need to use it. It's beautiful fabric, but how do we compete with others? And yeah, it's been challenging. Like the sales been down for sure in the like sense, I would say probably like COVID times, because that's the times when we had a bit more advantage because we were online already. And competition is up. It's been challenging. I'm not gonna lie, but we still have a beautiful community around us that supports us locally and online as well. And you got to make decisions that you have to make. You decrease your, any extra operating expenses that you don't need to. You decrease things, tighten things up. You make sure there's nothing extra that does not need to be spent. So you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like, you have a group of loyal fans. That's an expensive business expense in itself, is to have people who keep coming back for more. And so even in the hard times, it's nice to bring in new customers when things are going well in the economy. And certainly things are very challenging here in Canada. And I think probably everywhere. And so it's good to have those loyal fans. And you also do in-person. So talk to us a little bit about in-person events and how has that you've been able to tie that to your brand and build affinity that way?
The work we did with the nonprofit, with the community repair events, I kind of brought it to FABCYCLE because I was really missing that aspect of, we don't want to sell you stuff, we just want to hang out with you and make things. So we started running what we called socials. So it's SEW, like sewing social. Every last Friday of the month, and we've been running them since last year sometime. I don't remember when we started, but sometime last year we started. And they're amazing. We have one this Friday coming up. And they're just, people come, bring whatever they work on. We bring out some sewing machines. We bring a lot of like fabrics they can grab, the scraps or larger pieces. People can even swap things if they want to. And we just hang out for a couple hours and make things and just, talk. And then we do other events. We do events like sales events, or we actually in the summer, we did official launch event for Sewjo, but obviously FABCYCLE was running it. And so the event itself was what's called a Frocktails event. We didn't come up with a name. It's a type of an event that is very common in the hobby sewing community, and it's a play on words, frock and cocktail. And so it's basically a party, but the format is that you have like a runway. So you do a runway, and then folks that made their own garments, they can walk the runway to, to show off what they made. It's really cool. So we had 150 people. It was a big event. It was in a car dealership, which is surprisingly was amazing because car dealerships are beautiful, like glass like walls, and it's huge, and they removed all the cars from there, so we had like a huge space. So it was incredible. It was really great. So that people are like, when's the next one? We're like, oh, that was so much work. So we might do another one in the summer, but it's going to be a lot smaller in our building as well because we want to keep the format, but maybe not as like extravagant as we had at the launch event. So we love events. We love
Fair
events because
enough.
we love bringing people together because that's why we're here for. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And so, for a small brand that wanted to host their first event, what would you maybe tell them to
yeah,
focus on? And because obviously, it's a decent upfront cost. And so, what is it that they should be
yeah, I
focusing
would
on?
say, well, it depends what it is. It depends what is the purpose of the event. If it's a sell event, it's a sell event. If it's a community event, well, it depends. Do you want to like sell tickets? Do you want to have it for free? There's different ways to work around it. I would say space
Yeah,
is, to me, it's actually easier to find than anything else because a lot of businesses have space and they would love to have a collaboration with other organizations that can bring people in.
yes,
So
agreed.
space is usually easier to find. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily the biggest upfront. I think the biggest cost for these events is the time invested in things. And also depends on the event is
Hmm.
like the actual cost. Like, yeah, you're gonna have food and drinks, or you're gonna have like contractors, like are you bringing a DJ or what is it you're doing? But for smaller events, I would say, yeah, just keep it small, keep it, like lean, validate. And I would say actually for events, more than anything, I would say consistency is key. So instead of doing a one-off event, I would say
Hmm.
think about, are you going to do more events? And if so, plan already the next or the next one even. Because one-off events, they
Yeah,
don't work, but consistent events, those are the ones that build community. So I would say that's the biggest tip that I could give to anybody that wants to create that community through events.
I like that. What is the biggest thing about building this community that surprised you? Like, what have you thought, like, whoa, that's so cool, or that's awful?
Yeah, I would say actually it's a recent realization that I just had, which is super weird that I would have it right now. I don't know why. I recently did like went to this really big like a sewing expo, and I didn't realize how big is the quilting community actually is. Because to me, I'm like an apparel world, right? Like as I work with apparel manufacturers, like that's who I'm with. That was the world to me. Like obviously I know quilting and we have quilters that shop, but I didn't realize how massive is the quilting world is. And it was just like, huh. Like we don't get a lot of stuff again because we service apparel, but I didn't realize also how different it is. It was so interesting because they're organized differently. There's quilting guilds versus apparel groups. We don't have that really. And they're also a lot more like old school because they're a lot more traditional. It's just interesting. There's more activity, I feel like, in quilting a lot of times than apparel. And I'm like, oh, apparel is very fragmented. That's why I'm feeling it. So I was kind of realizing, and it's like, okay, that's really interesting. There's always like subgroups within any group, whatever. I just thought we're servicing everybody, not just like apparel folks, but there was a big realization about that. Another thing is to me interesting. I knew it before, but it's something that when I realized that, it was like, oh, yeah, is how folks are crossing different creativity sectors. We just did a market, for example. We did Fibrous West market, which was a yarn market. We have yarn because we get that too. But I also brought fabric, and I was just like, we're testing. I don't know. There were so many people that were like, they were doing knitting, they were doing crochet, but they were also doing like textile art or they were sewing. So people are crossing with different creativity aspects, like crafts, and I just thought it was like cool.
I think about my grandma. She's been quilting for ever, but they fit so well into what you're already doing because I think of my grandma and she'll get a pattern and then she'll look in her. I mean, she's told herself she's not allowed to buy any more fabric because this woman has like enough fabric to sink the Titanic. Um, but now it's like she gets creative. Like she thinks about, it's not that any of her stuff is waste, but like she'll have little scraps and she's like, oh, this is great. This can go on to this piece because like with quilting, you can do like the traditional, like quilting a blanket, but then you can also do like wall hangings. And she does a lot of that. And so, rather than using like what the pattern calls for, a specific pattern on the material, she'll be like, "Oh no, I have this thing with frogs on it. It works," and she'll and she'll put it on there. So, and she has fun because she always makes baby blankets, and so she has a lot of like really loud colors, and so she's able to take those scraps and put them all together. But yeah, I think that the quilting community definitely, at least like from the small sample size that I have, which is my grandma and her friends, like they don't waste anything and they always want to be able to use as much as they can. So yeah, there's definitely a big community there who I'm sure if they were to come and FABCYCLE or even like Sewjo, like I imagine like there's going to be a point where my grandma and probably all of her friends will want to offload a lot of this fabric at some point, and being able to connect with people in their little communities is something that would be super helpful as well. So that's really interesting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that.
I'll get my grandma on Sewjo. I'll
Yeah.
probably be
Get
an
her in Sojo.
uphill. Yeah. Okay, so thinking a bit more bigger picture, where do you think the fashion industry is heading when it comes to circularity? What have you seen?
Well, I mean, right now AI is obviously it's huge, right? Where I see AI right now used in the industry is to reduce costs and reduce wastage. Things like reducing the number of samples required for, when you're creating a line, there's a lot of wastage that goes into that. Communicated better. There's a lot of work that is done like around like 3D modeling, things like that. The issue right now we're having with textile waste is that it's still a traditional industry, so you still have to manufacture things. There's still costs are rising. So where things are coming are not because people want to be more sustainable necessarily. It's because they need to reduce cost and optimizing the model. And so now those things kind of go hand in hand because you do want to like have less waste, but you also want to optimize. So that's kind of right now it's aligned, but it's not always aligned with the goals, because there's different ways to cut costs. When a lot of times it's happened on an account of people, that's a big problem, right? That's why we're seeing a lot of like labor issues. We're seeing a lot of issues with like policy and health and safety and things like that. So, but yeah, there's a lot more awareness right now than years before, for sure, for more sustainability efforts that are coming from companies, from businesses. So, and there's also different organizations that kind of keep tabs and screening for greenwashing attempts, things like that. I think there were a couple of legislations that went through, I think it was in France, about greenwashing. So a lot of things happen around that. I think it's great. You can see more efforts coming from also worldwide. For example, there's a textile recycling conference that is just happening. I think it's the third year, I think, right now in a row. I think it's happening in North Carolina somewhere this year. And so like that didn't exist a couple of years ago. And the fact it's happening, I think it's phenomenal. And so we're getting better, but it's not fast enough. So that's just what it is.
It's nice. It is nice, like you said, that sustainability and optimization is aligned. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, for the most part, like leaving taps on and leaving lights on, it's not cost effective, nor is it sustainable. And having to trash, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars worth of fabric because you haven't optimized the fashion industry about that. Like, I don't know in terms of like pattern making and things like that, but I'm sure there's ways to optimize how you cut and sew to keep from opening. And yeah, throwing stuff out is just money on fire. And so you need to remember that. And so that's great. And it's good that technology is helping with that. Well, you've chatted more about what is upcoming in the fashion industry, but what is upcoming for FABCYCLE in the next year, 2, 3 years? What's going on?
Yeah, we're right now in a major transition mode that we're actually building a lot of things as we go. There's a lot of new activities that right now it works. I can't just say just yet because there's still like it works and this is still not solid. But we have a lot of interesting collaborations coming up, and there are like bigger projects coming up as well. One thing with just like change is that we change actually our hours to being Wednesday to Saturday starting in April instead of being Wednesday to tried it just, based on feedback that folks need more hours in the weekend just because they're working by the week. So we're like, okay, all right, we're doing this. But that's just like a small change that I mean, operationally it's big for us, but it's just like a small change on the outside, I guess, that we're open. And then, yeah, there's a couple of projects coming up. We have a lot of really cool stuff happening with Sewjo. There's a lot of work around that and a lot of developments. We're about to launch another feature in the next week as
Exciting.
well. Yeah, there's more features coming up. We have a whole roadmap built up, so it's really interesting. And I think the biggest word is collaborations and partnerships, because I think that's where we, to be able to get through what's ever happening right now with the economy, we have to kind of rely on each other and support one another. So that's where we're putting our efforts in. Yeah.
That's awesome. Wow. Okay. So busy year. So listeners, you'll have to keep your eye on FABCYCLE this year. And for those of you who are makers out there, download the app because that sounds so awesome. But let's transition into our rapid fire questions just so that listeners can get to know you a little bit better. Are you a coffee or tea person?
Both.
Coffee in the morning, tea in the afternoon. Is that
Yes,
the vibe?
exactly. Yeah.
I love it. Are you an early bird or a night owl?
I'm an early bird. I get up at 5 every day. That's my thing. Yeah.
5?
Yeah. I love my
Good for
mornings.
you.
I love my lazy mornings. Yeah.
I love that for you. How do you decompress after a work day?
Rule is phone stays on the counter, no touching the
Okay.
phone. Sometimes it's hard, but I do that. My biggest decompression, or I do it in the morning. So that's why I keep my mornings are very clear, because
Okay.
it's very important for me to start the day very clear. I do a lot of walks, exercise when not too lazy.
Yeah.
But that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds lovely. A nice slow morning. That sounds wonderful. What's your go-to comfort food?
Oh, I'm a carb girl. Love my carbs. Not sweets, savory.
Hmm.
They're a fresh bread, stuff like sesame or anything oh, that's
Mm.
my biggest thing. Yeah.
Cool. I love it. What is your current brand obsession?
I don't really have a brand obsession. I'm a thrift store gal, and grocery store kind of.
Great.
Yeah.
Is there a
Yeah.
thrift store? Because you're in Vancouver. So is there a thrift
I
store
live
like?
actually in Cloverdale, which is Surrey Langley area. So I have
Oh,
a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
thrift
Okay.
stores around here, which is very convenient. So
Very
yeah.
convenient.
Yeah.
Is there a favorite one you have?
They're in a triangle, so I visit them all
Oh, really?
I can walk it's all walking distance. I like to visually shop sometimes. I'll just go and look at things because I'm really inspired by colors and touch and feel. And sometimes you're
Mm.
I really don't want to talk to anybody, but I want to be around people,
Yeah, I
you know?
totally get that. I totally get that.
So I get that in a thrift store, and it's nice because then I can try things out, and I'm not necessarily gonna buy, but I just I get that visual satisfaction of I'm the best buddy for somebody going shopping. I'll be the best your buddy to go shop with because I don't need to buy anything to feel the satisfaction, the retail therapy. I'll be
Yeah.
you buy something, I'll be yes, and I'll get the satisfaction. So
That's perfect.
that's my thing. So not a brand, but the experience. Yeah.
Okay, that's very cool. That is very, very cool. Yeah, I'm learning that there's a lot of thrift stores in Edmonton that are really great. And
Yeah.
so I'm yet to go, but I'm quite excited to do that. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'll let you know. I'll keep you posted on the thrift store scene in Edmonton.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Irina, if people want to chat with you more or learn more about FABCYCLE, where can they find you?
Social media like Instagram, just send us DM, or Sewjo, send us a DM on the
Mhm.
website. I'm the one answering everything, so it doesn't matter where you're gonna
Oh,
go, it's
wow.
gonna go to me.
Okay, they can find you. They have a direct line to
Easy.
you, the founder.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, Irina, this has been so great. And I hope that you've inspired listeners to try out. My ask for all the listeners is if you haven't done an event, no pressure, and just try one out. Just see what works with your community, and meet people in real life. That's my challenge because I think that you've done such a great job of doing that. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Katie. It's been a pleasure, and I'm excited for you doing this, and thank you for hosting me.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap on another episode of Talking Purpose. My hope is that today's episode gave you the tools and the inspiration to lead with even more intention. If you enjoyed the episode, please show your support by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to help us grow this community of changemakers. If you have a question for our guest or a topic you want us to dive into next, drop a comment below. I read every single one.